Have you lost the connection with your higher self? Are you noticing the dis-ease of the outside world? It's time to reconnect with nature and each other and raise our consciousness, vibration, and frequency. Together we can create a world of peace and abundance. It's Spiritual Revolution Radio with your host, Dr. Will Miller.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spiritual Revolution Radio. I'm Dr. Will Miller. I'm the host today. And today I have Joyce Odidison on the show. Joyce is an expert in work relationships and diversity and inclusion conflicts and bullying and harassment and all sorts of things within the workplace. She's written 5 books. She's a keynote speaker. She's a corporate trainer. She is an amazing lady, just looking at her website and learning about her a little bit. And I'm excited to have her on the show and talk a little bit about what she does and the things she does that can really help us in our daily lives. Joyce, welcome to the show.
Dr. Will, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you and your audience today. And
we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about some cool things today that she does as part of her program. But before we kind of get started into those types of things, tell us a little bit about yourself, Joyce, how you got into this, a little bit of your background, and give us the story.
You know, I know you're a believer that things happen sometimes without us seeing. We don't have that, everything that happens doesn't have to be physical. There are spiritual elements to everything that happens. And I think when I look at my history and I remember, I live in Canada, but I was born in a tiny little island called Dominica, Commonwealth of Dominica. And I remember growing up with my grandma and the history of this woman in the early 1940s. She was so strong that she walked away from a betrothal to a very wealthy older man because she didn't think he would be a good husband material. So she knew, here's this young woman way back when, in a time when it was unheard of to be an unwed mother, stood up for herself and believed that to be in an unhealthy relationship with a partner, to be living with someone and to consciously marry someone, intentionally marry someone when you know that person isn't going to be a good father or a good husband, was worth any embarrassment, any stress, anything that she had to go through to be a single mother. And when I think of that history, it reminds me, I think it gives me some foundation for the work that I do. So I moved to Canada when I was 19, went to university here, met my husband at university, and I've lived more of my life here in Winnipeg, Canada than I have anywhere else in the world. And so I often say I'm neither from here nor there, and people hear my accent, they're like, where are you from? I'm like, well, a little here, a little there, because when I go there, I don't sound like them either. So it's a very interesting that I get to do the work that I do as a conflict analyst and corporate trainer and coach, and to see even, you know, people are allowing a lot of toxic situations in their lives that's causing them to be unwell. And I think the universe had already planned for me to have had that history, to be bold enough to say, you don't have to do that.
Yeah. So, so you stand out as this bold woman, and you've done a lot with your career. But kind of tell us how you got into WIS and how that started, and what prompted you to get there.
Well, as a conflict analyst, I was working with organizations doing conflict resolution training and helping employees who were being bullied and harassed. And they were showing up in my office and they were having physical ailments because they were angina, heart disease, client had a heart attack in my office, stroke. They were having physical ailments. And they needed a way to connect what was happening in their interpersonal relationships to their physical health. And so I came up with Wiz. It really is a nine-dimensional system tool that allows you to see that every dimension of your life. So we look at the spiritual dimension, the social, the emotional, occupational, intellectual. We look at environmental, financial, and then we look at physical. And at the core of the model is the interpersonal, which is where people were having all of these friction and tension and conflicts with their bosses, with their colleagues, with their co-workers, with their spouses, because most of the times they were taking it home and it was causing tension at home as well. So they would come to see me and they were very conflicted to the point that it was manifesting in illnesses. And so I would send them, go to your doctor, go check your medication, have your, are you taking your medication? But it started to dawn on me that there need to be more. They need a deeper awareness of how all of these things are connected. And it's that unseen, unknown connection that we sometimes forget in our physical world, that not everything is what we see. There are things that are hidden. There are things that we have to uh, consciously connect with. And that's what happened. That's how the Wiz method came about. I wanted my clients to see that what you do in your interpersonal relationship will impact how well you are spiritually, but what you do spiritually will also connect back to how you are relating with others in your social network. It will impact your emotional wellness. And so the nine dimension of wellness is is really what I want clients to know, that if you're spiritually unwell, if you're socially unwell, if you're emotionally unwell, if you're unwell occupationally, intellectually, in any of those dimensions, you will see a manifestation. It will impact other areas because everything is connected. We have that social vibration and that energy that connects every part of our life. So we're not apart. We are all connected. And those of us who are unwell, we actually infect others with our unwell because we bring that miserable, unhappy self to work, wherever we are, and we bring it home. And, I often
Right.
say, people are unhappy at work and they go home and they yell at their wife, they kick the dog bite the child, and it goes on and on. It's like it spreads. So it's very important for me in my work to just get people to pause and look at how well are you doing in these areas of your life. And so we've created an assessment, very simple, very simple, but very powerful, to get people to anchor back to the areas of their lives and how well they're doing in these nine dimensions of their lives, and be able to quantify how well am I doing spiritually, socially, interpersonally, occupationally. And when they get a number below five, it's a signal that they should actually be doing some work to improve in those areas.
I see. Sean, can you turn my headset down just a little bit? A little loud in the background there. But tell us about these nine dimensions. What are the nine dimensions that your assessment goes through? I have so many people tell me, I'm trying to separate my work life from my home life. And in my coaching, I always say, well, there is no separation. You're you, wherever you're at. So what are these nine dimensions that you're doing, and what are they for?
Okay. So this method gives people the opportunity to look at nine dimensions. The first one we look at is spiritual wellness. And on the spiritual wellness dimension, we look at things like self-esteem. We look at things like faith. We look at balance. We look at um, really purpose, right? Culture, values. Who am I? This is that realm of your life. This is that dimension that is invisible. Right? You can't see your faith. You can see your purpose. You just know, right?
You're talking about energy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that core element of who we are. And I usually, when I go to workplaces, I usually say, if you have breath, then you have a spiritual dimension. And in order for you to live optimally, you need to take care of your spiritual dimension. It's funny because corporations spend billions of dollars a year on personality styles and style profile and all of these
Right.
things, Myers-Briggs assessment. And they're assessing how, will you be the good leader? Will you be a good employee? Will you be a good fit? And really, at the end of the day, if we just invested a little bit more, a little less, in a more focused way to help people to develop spiritually, we wouldn't have to do all of that, because when you're spiritually well and you're anchored, you know what your purpose is, you know what your values are. You're living in alignment with your values. And alongside that, one of the things that I've developed, because I do a lot of teaching and training, and clients who come and say, okay, Joyce, when I'm spiritually well, what does that look like? I'm like, you're living in integrity with who you are. It's that integrity. Integrity is the competency we look to develop to be spiritually well.
Right.
And as we develop integrity, we are at one with our values. No longer when I ask someone, what are your values, they give me a list of values, and the people around them are saying, no, those are not the values. You don't value those things. I don't see them in your life. So you become one with who you are, your purpose. You live in alignment with your purpose. You live in alignment with your values. You do not do things that are outside your values or will conflict with your values. So it's that part of us where we grow and develop. Then we move down to the spiritual dimension. And in the spiritual dimension, we look at things like family, network, we look at community building. Those are the part of us that we also look at the way we interact with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we look at the competency of responsible communication, how we communicate with others. If we're not spiritually well in the spiritual dimension, it's going to impact how we interact and the kind of relationships that we can have in our social network, the level of impact we can have, and how we network with others. Then the third dimension we look at in the quadrants, we go down and we look at the emotional wellness dimension. In the emotional wellness dimension, we look at things like the way you behave. So we look at things like anger and resentment. We look at things like happiness, joy. All of these things are important, but what we focus on here is the competency, which is self mastery. And it tells us that if I am not my emotion, I'm not how I feel. How I feel is temporary. It can change depending on who I'm with or what I'm doing. And so if I allow myself to become what I feel in the moment, then I lack self mastery. I should be spiritually well and socially connected. That would allow me to identify what I'm feeling and then be able to question, I wonder why I'm feeling this way. What is it alerting me to? What did I miss? What do I need to pay attention to? You see, me and my feelings are separate. My feelings are experiences that I have as I go through the world. And then we go down to occupational. And in occupational, we look at things like career, job satisfaction, healthy work environment, and a whole host of other key life areas that make up that dimension. And so when we look at that, we look at engagement. How do we engage with what we do? How does that connect with who we are and our purpose? So as you can see, if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not well spiritually, socially, emotionally, it's a little harder to be well occupationally, because I don't know who I am. My emotions are off the chart, and if my boss is mad today, then I'm sad. And so I lack that self mastery to actually bring my whole self to work and to be able to identify the things that are happening around me as incidents and experiences, but not a definition of who I am. And so as we do that, and then my relationship with my colleagues and my work environment, and whether or not they're suitable for me, and whether or not they're aligned with my values, and is it, Should I be looking to stay in this job and growing in this job? What do I have to offer? Well, how do I contribute, and how do I be that ideal contributor to the workplace? And then we move on to the next dimension, which is dimension number 5. We look at intellectual wellness. And this is where we start to look at things like judgment. We look at things like my experience, my learning, but also accountability, goal setting, critical thinking. Those are all very important elements of life management. And if we're not doing well in those areas, right, it's a little bit tougher because we're not building capacity. And the competency that we teach is capacity building. How are you learning? We're supposed to be either learning or and growing, or we're dying. And if we're not learning and looking at how we evolve on the planet and how we contribute to work and our environment, then we're challenged. Then the next dimension we look at is we look at the environmental dimension. And so in environment, we look at things like diversity, we look at things like tolerance, acceptance, social responsibility, healthy environment. We look at ourselves in relations to what's around us. And if we're not well, we cannot have good relationships with those things around us and people around us. And so we're more likely to be bigoted and racist and discriminating and ignorant and, not careful, not taking care of our environment. And so when we are well in those areas, we are more socially responsible. We are able to be a contributor and a caretaker of our environment. And so in that particular dimension, we look at the competency of interdependence, recognizing that we need each other. And that's one thing that COVID-19 taught us is how interdependent we are. Right? Someone got a flu bug over in China and the whole world gets sick because we are interdependent. We share the same air. We live in the same world, and our world has become more of a village. Then we actually move to financial wellness. And in financial wellness, we look at things like our ability to be innovative, to be creative, to plan, to execute, to make good decisions, money management, budget our time and our resources. Those are very important. And when we lack the ability to be creative, and innovation is the competency we build around that dimension that gives us the ability to look at new ideas, new opportunities, and to learn and to actually contribute to the world around us. Then we go into the physical dimension and we look at health, um, weight management, nutrition. We look at all the different things, chronic diseases, how are we taking care of ourselves, self-care, stamina, all of those things are very important. And we start looking at how well am I doing in those areas? What should I do differently? What resources do I need? Who should help me? And the competency we develop in there is vibrancy. Because if you're vibrant, vibrancy is about movement, and we're created as beings of movement and vibrancy. And it's so important for us to be vibrant in our lives, to move every day, to be active, to be conscious about what we put in our bodies and how we take care of ourselves. That's part of our responsibility. We're put on this planet to manage our lives. And sometimes we fail in that area. So we build on that competency. And then competency number 9 is interpersonal. And in interpersonal, we look at things like conflict management, responsible action, purposeful intention, forgiveness, good relationships, collaboration with others, teamwork, esteem. Those are very important. And when we look at those things, we ask ourselves, what am I doing in those areas? And how do I develop in those areas? And the competency we develop in that is actually resilience. Because would you remember that when you meet someone who's gone through a hard time or a tough time in their life, or had to overcome something, it's always because of someone else. So the whole concept of resilience is we overcome for each other. We overcome, we bounce back because of the love or the commitment or the happiness we want to bring to someone and someone else brings to us, or the meaning and purpose that that person brings to our life. And that is really encapsulates the WIS method in a small package.
So you're taking these 9 dimensions and you're putting them through this analysis process in the workplace, but it ties more than just the workplace. So if you wouldn't mind, just give us just a couple 3 little points or tidbits that we can use in our daily lives to make things better, not only in the workplace but in our lives. What are those 2-3 little tidbits that I know you have that can help us?
I think it's very important for us to think about our life as holistic. I am not one dimension. We are multidimensional. And so, tip number one is to stop looking at yourself as unique. You are multi. Right? Stop seeing yourself as, oh, well, I go to work and what happens at work goes to work. No, stays at work. No, you bring home. People actually take home more than the paperclip from home. We bring home all the stuff that happens at work, and we have conversations with our families about our life. So, in your personal life, remember that you have to be well in order for you to contribute to wellness, be it in your church group, in your work group, wherever you are. So, first thing is to ask yourself, how well am I really doing in this area of my life? And what do I need to do to develop? What do I need to do to improve? Because WIS is really about wellness improving. Because life is a journey, and it's a journey of improvement. If we fail to improve, then we start going backward. We start sliding backward,
Yeah,
and
our
then
purpose
we
in life is not to stay stagnant, right?
exactly, exactly. And well, you can go either backward or forward, and I believe forward is the way to go. So
I
that's why
agree.
we focus on improvement, which doesn't mean that you have to fix everything at once. Take one area that's of really importance to you and start working on that area. And the nice thing about this is a system. So once you start working on one area, everything else benefits from it. So don't worry about, oh, I have to fix this one, or I have to just pick one. Anyone, you could go any minute, you could just close your eyes, pick one area, and start working on it. Ask yourself, how well do I want to be in this area on a scale of 1 to 10? What would be ideal for me in terms of how well I want to execute? And it could be in your relationship with your spouse. It could be with a child, with a parent, with a sibling. It could be just maybe drinking more water. It could be, you know what, I don't exercise, but I need to start exercise. So I say, when you wake up in the morning, if you have enough space for your foot to pass, then try to do a few push-ups. You don't have to do the full man one. Just do the ones on your knees.
Right.
Start with one. Add another one every day. Just the little micro improvement strategies that we can take on a daily basis to improve our lives. We don't have to overwhelm ourselves and start thinking, oh, I have to go run a marathon. No, just do the little things, the little improvement,
Right.
and you will start seeing it add up. It will. It's compound interest.
Yeah. And I think that's great advice, because a lot of people think they've got to start a workout program and they've got to go right into this whole program, and if they don't do it every day, they're doing the wrong thing. Where if we just do a little something every day, we would find that in a very short period of time we've made a great distance in where we're going. Very quickly, we're down to about the last minute and a half. Let people know where they can find you and get more information about you and hire you if they need, and find out the program that you offer.
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on at joyceodidison.com or my corporate site, interpersonalwellness.com. And you can also join us at the upcoming Global Workplace Wellness Summit coming up at globalworkplacewellnesssummit.com, where I'll be teaching these 9 dimensions and helping individuals to work, live, and play well. This is our tagline. So send me a message and actually join us and take the steps to improve your life, because that's why we're here.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I love your advice and love what you do. Everybody just definitely look Joyce up on her website and follow her, and the Wellness Summit. Definitely look it up and participate. I'm Dr. Will Miller. You can find me at lifebydesign.institute. And if you want to be on the radio show, want to be a guest, have comments about the show, please contact me at spiritualrevolutionradio.com. Love and peace, everyone, and have an amazing day.
This has been Spiritual Revolution Radio with Dr. Will Miller. For more information or to be a guest, please visit lifebydesign.institute. Join us next week for another edition of Spiritual Revolution Radio with your host, Dr. Will Miller. This has been a production from a podcast studio.